Experiment time. Today we'll see if it's possible to bake your sourdough bread for a shorter amount of time, thus saving electricity. Are you ready to lower your electricity bill? I know I am. Hi, I'm Sune and I'm a food geek. So a viewer wrote to me and suggested that you could bake low hydration bread for a shorter time. So I devised an experiment to see if it's possible to save electricity using this method. The premise is simple. I will be baking 4 loaves at 60% hydration. Since I want this method to be compatible with 2-stage baking, the amount of time with and without the Dutch oven lid will be the same. If you don't know about 2-stage baking, I have a video about that. I'll be baking the loaves for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and 50 minutes. 50 minutes is how I bake currently, so that will also serve as the control. If you're new to this channel, I bake a lot of sourdough bread and I make delicious food from all over the world. If you want to see more of this content, please join me by subscribing and ringing the bell so you won't miss any future videos. The dough that I will be using in this experiment differs from my standard experiment dough. I've made the dough with 100% bread flour, and that's because whole grain flour is generally more absorbent than sifted flour, so it might make it difficult for me to mix the dough at such a low hydration. The hydration is 60%, which is low for my bread flour, but depending on what you use, you may be able to mix the dough with 50% or even 50% hydration. Get to know your flour. The rest of the ingredients follow my standard experiment dough, 20% sourdough starter and 2% salt. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon. You can also buy some merch, or use the super thanks, or use the links in the description for tools and ingredients. Those were the words. This is the experiment. This is an experiment, not a recipe. If you'd like to know how to make sourdough bread, there's a link in the description for my master recipe. First, I mix the dough for all 4 loaves. Because of the low hydration, the dough needs to be kneaded. Then I put the dough in my large Cambro container and let it proof until it's grown by 25%. I split the dough into 4 equally sized pieces and pre-shape each into a ball. Then after a 20-minute rest, I final shape all 4 loaves.
Then I put them in the fridge for a retard for about 8 hours. With my Challenger inside, I heat my oven to 230 degrees Celsius, 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes. Then I bake all 4 loaves. After they're all done, I let them cool completely. While it looks like they took the same amount of time for each loaf, the color will tell you it wasn't so. Alright, let's cut the loaves and see the crumb, but first, let's just examine the crust. This one is very, very soft. It doesn't seem completely done. This one is a bit harder, crunchy in spots. This one is nice and crusty, still pretty pliable though. Wow, this one is the crust freaking master. Listen. Not for people who have a hard time chewing though, but this is my preferred crust. Okay. Now it's time for the sniff and taste test. Stay afterward to hear my conclusion on this rather exciting experiment. This smells rather doughy. It's certainly not completely finished. This one smells nice, but not very distinct. No discernible smell comes off the crust. That's more like it. The crumb smells nice and bready, and the crust smells great. Browned, delicious bread. Yum. I do like my bread dark and toasty. The crumb smells like the previous one, but the crust in this one has that dark and somewhat bitter smell. Love it. Alright, time to taste. After I cut the entire 20-minute bread, it was obvious that there were parts that weren't actually baked, but I picked a slice that didn't have any doughy parts. The taste is alright. It's bread, but nothing really pops out. This one tastes good. I would love a bit more character, but it certainly passes the Sune test. Okay, this is the stuff. It tastes really nice, really good. Some of those notes that I was missing in the previous ones. Oh, yummy. While it takes longer to bake, it also really makes a difference in taste. Even though it was longer in the oven, the crumb isn't dry at all, and the notes from the crust are excellent.
That was one of the more exciting experiments that I've done in a long time. Well, 20 minutes of baking time was a failure. The bread simply wasn't finished, and it was pretty close to tasteless. From 30 to 50 minutes is more a matter of taste and texture preference. If you like light and soft bread, 30 minutes is an excellent place to go. If you like dark and super crunchy bread, 50 minutes is the right time. 40 minutes is a happy middle ground. Not too dark, but still pretty crusty. I will still be baking my bread for 50 minutes, but you may want different results. And you can save up to 20 minutes of baking time per loaf. That's significant. Now, I'm considering if it's worth testing if this is precisely the same for high hydration bread, or if high hydration bread requires longer baking time. What if I tried to bake low hydration bread but at a higher temperature? Could the bread be finished at 20 minutes? Tell me in the comments what kind of related experiments you'd like to see. I hope you learned something today. See you next time.